Hi everybody, I'm Porter. Thanks for having me here today. I am going to talk about kind of networking, which sounds really boring, but what I want to talk about is the random moments in life. So if you think about Sliding Doors, that movie, how people's lives are changed when you meet people. You all heard about people that have met at coffee shops. Maybe they've met on airplanes. Well, I've spent the last 4 years on airplanes traveling all over the country, all over the world. I worked for an airline, and so I was very aware of what was happening. And instead of putting headphones on, what I constantly did was sit in my chair. I'm going to be the first one using a prop today other than a ball. I'm going to use this chair. So imagine this is an airline seat, and I'm going to talk about some of the things that happen. So I really want to talk about when you're open to life's possibilities and giving back to people, what can happen, okay? So in an airline seat, how many of you travel? You all travel, right? Probably 10, 20 times a year. If you're like me, you do. So I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm on the plane, I get on and I always fly in seat 4C. It's constantly the seat I'm in. I can actually book that one. I sit in 4C. You're usually sitting there. You're watching people get on the plane. You're thinking, oh my God, I hope that woman with the twins doesn't come sit next to me. It's gonna kill me. Or hate to say it, but the person who's a bit larger, who spills in the seat, you don't want them sitting next to you, do you? But what we have to realize is that it's hard to see this slide, but because of social media, relationships have actually moved from 6 degrees of separation to 4. So it doesn't matter who is sitting next to you. They're only 4 degrees away from knowing your mom, knowing your boyfriend, and probably knowing the person who can get you a job, who can get you a TV show, music contract, etc. So I'm going to tell you about some of the people that I've met in my seat. And while I'm talking, I want you guys to think about the next time you're flying, not keeping your headset on, but being open to connections. So I'm sitting in my seat, and I see this guy, and he's a little bit scruffy. Handsome, but scruffy. He looks like he hasn't bathed in about a week. He comes walking down the aisle, and I'm like, well, that's a pretty good luck. Even though he's a little dirty, I'll take it. He's sitting next to me. So he sits down, a little bit smelly, kind of like some of us from sitting in the sun today, right? Everyone's a little bit hot. And so he says, gosh, the mood lighting on this plane is amazing. I'm like, yeah, it's really cool, isn't it? It's really nice. I'm like, okay, there's the conversation starter. So there's lesson number 1. Conversation can be anything. It can be, wow, you put your phone in your shoe. I do the same thing when I travel on overnights. And you know what happens when you ask people questions or you make comments? They feel valued. They feel like you are accepting them, that you're interested. It's a great way to start these connections. So David's sitting next to me, and he says, I actually know your boss. And I was like, really? You know my boss? David Cush is the name of my boss who at this airline, which I won't say the name of it, but you can probably guess. He said, no, actually, I know your boss, Sir Richard, and I was just on Necker with him. I said, oh, really? So turns out that this scruffy guy sitting next to me happens to be an eco-adventurer. So we have this amazing conversation. He starts talking about his projects. He's collecting plastic bottles and building this incredible boat that he is going to sail from San Francisco to Australia. Here is this moment where he's telling me this intense journey about he's trying to change the world and do all sorts of things that probably couldn't have even happened if I had my headset on. So what happens next is I bring my daughter to see the boat being built. My daughter's 9. She gets inspired. She starts taking photographs, brings the photographs into her classroom. The kids at the class, they all think, wow, this is really cool. So the class starts building a model around environmental awareness, reading articles about David's journey. So I'm washing dishes at the house recently. My daughter looks at me, she says, Mom, turn the water off. What are you doing? You're wasting water. So now did David, sitting next to me, influence my daughter? Definitely. So keeping with this theme, because I do travel about probably 10 times a month at least, I get back in the seat, I fly around, I talk about social media usually. I meet with a bunch of kids and their mentors, And I meet this woman. She comes up to me. Her name is Nancy. My last name is Gale. You guys might have noticed that. Gale actually means happy and bubbly, or a gale force wind, whichever one you want to interpret. Nancy comes up to me and she starts telling me her life story about how she used to have this boring career and she was a financial writer, and that she actually decided to go for her dreams and go for her passions. And so she's making handbags. We connect. She tells me that she's working with these kids. She's teaching them about entrepreneurialism. They are kids that are at an inner city school in Los Angeles, the environmental charter school. I get very inspired. I say, you know what? I really think we need to stay connected. I want to know more about the kids. We become friends. So maybe 6 months goes by. We talk about business. We talk about her passions. And then all of a sudden one night, it's probably around 10 o'clock, I get this video from the kids. And it's maybe 45 seconds long. And I don't know if you guys recall this, but Obama recently was doing a contest about environmentalism where he was going to speak at a high school. And there was a vote, and the high school that had the most votes would get Obama to come and be at their school. So these kids were in the finals to have Obama come and speak at their school. So using all the tools that they knew, they were writing and using every single connection that they could think of. They sent videos. They made one for Sir Richard and basically said, Sir Richard, we love the environment. We're trying to get Obama to come to our school. Will you help us? Now, I know Sir Richard, but he has 50,000 employees. So I've presented to him. I've never really asked for a favor. I've met him half a dozen times. I've presented to him. But I thought, you know what? This is actually worth it. I'm going to send the video to him and see what happens. So I forward the video to him. Maybe it was 12 hours later, the next day, my phone rings. Porter, it's Sir Richard. I'm like, oh my God, is this a joke? Like somebody must be like playing with me on this one. Says, I got your video. How can I help the kids? By the way, I'm in LA. I was like, well, you know what? If you would meet with the kids and actually vote for them and do it like on videotape or do something for the kids, I think it could really make a difference. He said, well, I'm going to be at the Sunset Marquee at 5 o'clock, get the kids together, and I'll meet with them for 5 minutes. So I'm like shaking. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Sir Richard actually just called me, said that he'd meet with the kids. So I call Nancy, get your kids together. So she drives around. She pulls all the kids out of school. They go to Sunset Marquee. Richard comes walking in, and the kids meet with them. They're all sitting together. And 5 minutes turned into an hour. And what he said to the kids, he said, what's important about the future? How are you going to make a difference? And why do you want to be an entrepreneur? He spent 1 hour of his time with these kids, basically encouraging them to think about their lives. So what happened after that? They left, they got their photos. Do you think their lives were changed? One moment, 1 hour of time that someone gave to these kids. So now in their classroom, they have this whole thing where they basically say, what would Richard Branson think? What would Richard Branson say? What would Richard Branson do? So he has been basically cemented into these kids' lives. Then I brought the kids to an event, to a social media event. I had them share their experience and the power that this happened. Because I'm a storyteller, I love sharing stories. I go to my birthday gathering, and frankly, my birthday gathering was almost as big as this room. There were all these people I didn't know because I love having everybody come. And I'm telling the story. I'm like, oh my God, it was amazing. And so this guy says to me, he says, well, my name's Steve, and I'd love to share my story with the kids. So, my gosh, I'm a couple slides behind. So Steve was born into near poverty-like conditions. Steve was at my birthday party randomly. He basically couldn't get a job in the recession, and so he decided to go to Union Square in San Francisco and wear a sandwich board with his resume on it, basically saying, I'll work, I'm trained, I'm a lawyer, I'm a financial expert, I'll do whatever it takes. He kept going out, doing everything he could. He wanted to meet with Nancy's kids. So Steve flies down to LA. He meets with the kids. Steve was actually number 13 at Google. He got his job by standing in Union Square, by the connections that he met. And he basically went to the kids and he said, you know what? You got to do whatever it takes. Just keep going for your dreams. Keep doing everything that you can. It's all about the power of asking, and it's all about confidence and follow through. That's 95% of it is the follow through. So, what I want you guys to think about now is that social media, here's 3 examples that I talked to you about where it's just a couple of connections that have changed people's lives. What we have now is the power of collective influence because social media allows you to connect with people all over the globe. You can connect with people that have all different interests. You can collect with people. And so what I want you to think about is this room. I'm talking about one chair. In this room, it's probably 2 airplanes full. There's 140 people on an airplane. We probably have 300 people in the room. So we've got 2 airplanes full of people, all of the influence that you can have here. In my brief amount of time here talking with people, I met a woman who has studied chimps in Uganda. I met someone who was in Israel. He was an actor in the Batman film. I've met triathletes. So the power of the connections in this room are incredible. So I'm going to give you guys one little gift. I'm going to give you 3 or 4 topics, and I want you to look around the room. So environmental issues. If you raise your hand, if you're concerned about environmental issues, you got to look around. So these are all people you could connect with. How about fitness? You're all triathletes. Yeah, definitely fitness. Okay. How about financial crisis? It looks like fewer hands going up. This is definitely a fitness crowd. All right. So with that, I just want to thank you. I want to quote one of my friends, Tim Ferriss, who basically says that most people can do inspiring things. They just need a little bit of a nudge. So I want you to think about who you can help, how you can give back, and what connections you can tap into. Thank you very much.